We are presenting on a case study in Washington State around OSM trail compatibility, with curated trail data. My name is Stephen Cerqueria.
My name is Monica Brandeis, and we're from Locana.
Formerly known as curating. It's a shameless plug. Locana, we provide spatial solutions, integration, and connection between, with a variety of different public and private clients doing a variety of different things. So if you need any help with that kind of space, please let us know. We'd love to help out. So we'll go through a little bit of the analysis that we did. So I'll give a little bit of a presentation on the purpose of what we did and why we did it, and then I'll kick it off to Monica for compatibility and OSM collaboration. So if you didn't know, we're kind of in a sequel of this project. Last year, we presented a Tuesday on the difference between two different types of trails, an official trail and a social trail. Official, very blanket statement of being something that's marked by a land manager or owner, whereas a social trail is something that's more physically manifested by a hiker or pedestrian. There's an OSM project, the U.S. Trail Access Project, that had tagging schemas that gave us the guidelines on what should be defined as one or the other. And then based on the data collection process that we did last year, it kind of influenced updates to that schema. And then we just kind of quantified the relationship in focal areas between the two. In particular, identifying social trail areas in OSM, and then reaching out to the local communities that we have a relationship with to make the necessary updates in OSM. And just for context, last year we did national forests and parks in Arizona and Colorado. We did that because we wanted to create a control that last year, which was go through areas that had a relationship between the local OSM community and the local government agency. And what we were seeing in these places was that they had a relationship where they would do bulk import of government data into these national parks and national forests. This year, we decided to get rid of that control and provide a case study in an area where we knew there was not an infrastructure currently in place between the local OSM community and the local government agency in that respect. So the basic of the objectives in this analysis is to curate a government data set to identify the true gaps in OSM, and then try to inspect OSM for expected attribution, stuff like trail types with an operator tag and or access tag, and then ownership with access tags. This is also pertinent because 2 years ago, the Washington State Legislature had directed the Recreation and Conservation Office, which we'll refer to now as RCO, to update their state trails database. So we want the latest and greatest data for them. They also wanted to update or create a data management system to support the new database that they were building. So it was in like-minded of approach. It just seems more pertinent now with all the work that people have been doing with trails and within OSM to connect the two between the government agencies and OSM that are working on similar entities. So because we're building a government data from scratch and kind of doing that as sort of analysis, we had to use a different set of queries based on the tagging schemas that we already known from last year's presentation, and then kind of making trying to find ways that we can make connections between that government data and then what's currently in OSM. So we use a variety of different queries with a variety of different sort of tagging schemas to play around and give us some percent confidence in the relationship that they had between the two.
Right. Let's leave this in here. So, like Stephen mentioned, we have a government data set that is kind of in the same concept of, hey, let's collect different level of agency data together. We have on the other side, the OSM data with a really, really good and very, very rich information for that. Now, our question then also was inspired in the trail working group. Now it's called Trail Stewardship Group Initiative. Is like, okay, government has all of the information for the land managers and they have access tags. And if we can have those two start talking to each other, grab, what they need, not necessary, it needs to be a one product. It will actually hopefully trying to bring the two pieces a little bit closer and closer every iteration. Through that, this analysis is having some assumptions. So we're not here to do OSM quality. Some of you might know me. I have done a lot of OSM quality assurance in the past. But we're not here to talk about who's better, who is more accurate. We are here to actually see they're close or they're nearby. Not necessarily need to be the same. The RCO data set, the curate data set were verified in a different stage and still currently verified it. The OSM and the RCO data set are curated from a different type of source, the community and so on. They are relatively compatible in a sense. So with those assumptions, we'll start with super simple, everyone can do this. Find out if there is 50 feet, if those two data sets actually talking to each other. Are they the same trails? Our very, very preliminary analysis did show, hey, there's 95% they're actually talking to each other in some sort. Their 60% are highly compatible, means the trails pretty much the same. We have a slightly different way to mapping the ground truths. And there are 35% the OSM trail might be unnamed, or there could be a more collaboration together. We also identify there has some potential together. It's a little surprising when we find out that, but 5%, I want to know what's happened there. We actually were able to identify some small segments that is in the government data set. Take Seven Lake Basin Olympic National Park, for example. There are some roads, trails that is not being mapped in the OSM. But from this, giving you a sense of, yeah, they're kind of comparable. The red is being OSM and the green being the RCO data set. You can also see there are some trails that is only OSM only. So you can see a sense of, yeah, they kind of can talk to each other. And then some of the things were kind of false positive because we did set up as a 50 feet. I think it's wide enough that they should talk to each other. And then there are some discoveries we did find like, okay, they actually have the same geometry. It's just a little shift one way or the others for that 5%. So it's less than 5%. Let's switch to the high capability. Like, are they talking? Like, I'm very data person. It's a data level analysis. You can see in the OSM, tagging OSM wiki, the highway equals pass has all of the attributions compared to the RCO data set. You know, all the attributes are almost there 1-to-1. We also sampling few of the informations. They're highly compatible. OSM has almost all gray information as far as RCO data set is right now. For the operator tag, it's a little bit tricky. On the OSM wiki, it does suggest the operator tag should be in the route equals hiking, which is a hiking network. And it is a relation, so it's a connection of different OSM ways versus the government data set, the RCO data set, we have the layer manager based in per segment. So there is a little bit data model wrangling we need to work on. We are also surveying on observing few things of the layer manager operator tag. We find a lot of OSM way being using operator tag as well. So I think there could be something that the trail stewardship group might be interested, or it might be too small, you know, to figuring out and bring the inconsistency back to consistent. Now I want to talk about the fancy power of the OSM. So you see, we generate something that there is a gap. on the May 4th, and then I was like, send it this message to the local chapter through Slack. And then I was like, hey, someone would be interested to take a look? You know, I don't expect people will actually reply to me. One of the volunteers and also a board member, Matt, you can see the pictures on there. So a lot of efforts come in right within like a day or two. And the mapping is done on May 7th. Those are the version 1. Those are the new data that's in the state part. That's the power of the OSM and how fast, once the gap has been identified, the community is very driven to make this better, I think. There are still a lot of big efforts needs to be complete, and I'll have Stephen cover that.
So like what we did last year in Arizona and Colorado, once we found out that the gap analysis and that there were discrepancies in OSM, whether it be bad data or data that doesn't exist, like Monica's alluding to, we utilized Maplet and it's a simple way to get the community involved and give them a sort of a package of like, here is where we think there's bad data or incorrect data or anything like that, and then empower the local community to make the necessary edits. And so we started off from there, and then we're trying to branch out and think what's next, right? That's solving the solution immediately. How do we go from here? How does scalability? As we were doing it, it was undeniable the mutual interest that exists between RCO and initiatives like public domain map. So it's a complex issue that we're trying to gauge as well when we're connected with local state agencies or in Washington State. But we're going to keep an eye out for opportunities to potentially engage with the two to see if there's an opportunity where we can turn those initiatives into one in some aspects. So data contributions from the RCO would be great. They are actively creating their own data collection process and building their own trails database, like we mentioned earlier. Why is that something we can't share across the board, put into public domain and have that accessible to public domain map? And if not, is there an opportunity where RCO can use public domain map as a way in which to verify their own independent data collection process? There's something that we just see going forward, and we would love to support and continue to see if there's ways where the initiatives become as one. So just want to give some acknowledgements to the local Washington Trail group. We appreciate everyone's time, especially our moderator, Matthew, and then to analyst efforts from our own company this year and last. We really appreciate their time.
Yeah, personally, I want to say thank you. I asked the questions through the Slack, it's always getting the answer to me. This is how we should do it. And the tagging from the big trail group. And, once you want to reach out to the local people, they're there for you. So thank you very much.
Thanks, y'all.